Welcome to the Big Blue Breakdown as we go over the New York Giants' three key matchups for their game on Sunday at home against the New Orleans Saints. Now, these are two teams that have shared an awful lot of disappointment this year. In fact, they actually share a couple of very important statistics when you take a look at it. Both teams have had 7-game losing streaks. The Giants are currently on a 7-game skid. Remember, they lost to Dallas their last time out down in Texas, 27-20 on Thanksgiving Day. New Orleans got over their 7-game skid 3 weeks ago with back-to-back wins over the Falcons and the Browns, but then last week upended by the LA Rams, 21-14. Some other similarities on this team? Well, let's see. Both teams are allowing 23 points a game defensively. The Giants with 76 missed tackles, having trouble holding on to guys and bringing them down. That's tied for 12th most in the NFL. The Saints have 84 missed tackles, even worse, tied for the 8th most in the NFL. That can be a big problem and why you're giving up points. Both teams specifically have had trouble against the run. The Giants giving up 145 yards a game, 29th in the league. Saints not much better, 26th in the league at over 135 yards a game themselves. So you can see that there are similarities here, at least defensively, with these two teams. Now, the Giants do have a much better pass rush, although lately, as we know, they have fallen from being the leading sack team in the NFL to now I believe they rank 6th, as they have really slowed down over the past month. They've got 36 sacks on the season. The Saints with only 27, tied for 23rd most in the league. All right, the injury situation for the Giants is not very good, folks, and it shouldn't surprise you, because if you've been keeping track of things this week, you know that during the mid-portion of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, you had Deonte Banks, Nacho Nunez-Roches, and Bobby Okereke, 3 starters on defense, all missing practice time, and they go into Friday with a very sketchy outlook for being able to play in the game. Other starters on defense, if you consider Dane Belton, who plays an awful lot in the 3-safety package, he was limited on Thursday with a sore hip. Tyler Nubin, obviously, he's a starting safety. He now has a sore knee and was limited on Thursday as well. So this Giants defensive unit, already ravaged by the fact that Dexter Lawrence dislocated his elbow in Dallas a week and a half ago. I mean, you can imagine, how defensive coordinator Shane Bowen must feel as he's preparing for Sunday's game. He is really shorthanded. And as we know, again, the Giants' defense has had some struggles lately and all season, quite frankly, against the run. Not a good recipe when you're facing a New Orleans Saints team that heavily relies on Alvin Kamara. We'll talk about him in just a second. But to understand this, what can Shane Bowen do? Well, he's going to have to work in a slew of people on the D-line. We're talking about guys like Casey Rogers, and a lot of you folks were high on him when he came in as an undrafted rookie free agent out of Oregon during the summer. Well, you got to think he's going to get a whole bunch of snaps this week. I mean, not only are the Giants' 2 starting defensive tackles basically shelved, you're also looking at their 2 primary backups. Jordan Riley is hurting. DJ Davidson is hurting. It's unknown how much they'll be able to give the Giants on Sunday. And so Elijah Chapman is really the lone guy who is healthy in the Giants' defensive tackle rotation. He's usually amongst the top 4 or top 5 defensive tackles on any given Sunday. Well, he's healthy. Now, we all know he's rather short and stout. They love his power, they love his speed and his quickness, but he usually plays in obvious passing downs because they'd like to use him to help push the front of the pocket. Well, he and Jordan Riley were the only two healthy defensive tackles during the second half of the Dallas Cowboys game, or at least most of the second half, and had to play the entire rest of the way. You're looking at probably an awful lot more snaps for Chapman. If you thought he saw, some more last week, just wait till what he sees against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. So that's certainly going to be a significant challenge for him. Of course, we also know that the other big injury news for the Giants this week is that quarterback Tommy DeVito's arm has healed to the point where he was able to fully practice on Thursday. But Coach Brian Daboll had already made the decision that he would go with Drew Lock for the second straight game. He said Lock did some good things in and out of the pocket against Dallas, with only having one day to work through a walkthrough with his teammates. So not only was he anxious to see if Lock could take another step forward, but also understanding that earlier in the week, DeVito's arm was still a bit sore, so you didn't know how that was going to respond. And the fact that Daboll said he really wanted to give Lock a full week of practice with as many of the regulars that he would play with as possible, so that at least in practice speed, he'd have an opportunity to get a better feel for things, get a better timing situation down with his receivers. And let's see how Drew Lock can take things against New Orleans. It's really, he's in the same boat as Tommy DeVito was 2 weeks ago, right? DeVito took a small step forward in his start. Lock took a small step forward in his start. Now Lock is getting a second chance. If he can progress and take another step forward, well, that gives Brian Daboll something to think about, because he's not committing to who his starting quarterback is going to be the following week against the Baltimore Ravens. He's only going week to week right now. So whichever one of these two quarterbacks takes the bigger step and builds on his progress is probably going to be the guy who gets the start the next week. And so if Lock can take a major step forward, well, then by all logic, he'll probably wind up being the guy against the Ravens until at some point either he flats out or takes a step back. And that would be a significant development, because as we've told you before, both Lock and DeVito are in a situation during this final month or so of the season to try to enhance their value and establish themselves as guys that the Giants would want to bring back during the offseason in 2025, understanding that, Lock is a free agent, so they have to make a decision there, and that'll also be a financial one. And Tommy DeVito is an exclusive rights free agent. It's a lot easier to bring him back because he can return on a very small salary, comparatively speaking. So I think he's got a better chance of coming back as long as he doesn't, slip off a cliff. But Locke is a little bit more of a touch and go situation, because he will be an unrestricted free agent and you will have to offer him a bit of a chunk of change. So he's looking to prove his worth as best as possible over these final few weeks to see if he can entice the Giants to bring him back. All right, let's take a look quickly at the Saints. Now, what's going on with them? Look, Derek Carr statistically is having another fine season, but the people in New Orleans are not very pleased because of the overall record. Well, let's take into account, and I know it's easy to do from afar, their top two receivers are out. Chris Olave with a concussion, Rashid Shaheed, knee surgery. Neither one of those guys are going to be there, so their top two receivers are out of the lineup. Their top overall threat, Alvin Kamara, is still there. Okay, we already told you that. But Taysom Hill wound up injuring his ACL, and now he is out of the lineup. Now, we all know what Taysom Hill brings to the table, right? They list him as a tight end, but he's also a wide receiver. He's also a running back, and he can also be a quarterback. The jack of all trades, who has been infinitely valuable to the Saints offense for several years, now out of the lineup. So if you count it up, that's three of their top four offensive weapons are sidelined. it's a tough road to hoe if you're Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara, because that's basically all that defenses can focus on now. Interestingly enough, I just should throw this in there because, the guy has had some flashes, and I will throw this in. Marcus Valdez-Scantling only has 8 catches this year for 237 yards. But, check this out, 67-yard touchdown against Cleveland, and also a 50-yard bomb against Atlanta. Also has caught a 71-yard touchdown pass this year, which would be his 10th, not his 10th, but one of the top 10 longest passing plays of the season in the league. So amazingly enough, even though he's only caught 8 passes, he has had 3 bombs of over 50 yards. So you do have to be mindful of him, that he could suddenly come out of the woodwork and scare you with a big play. So I do throw that out there for your consideration. Also to mention, as far as the Saints go, they are a bit banged up inside on the offensive line. Their left guard, Patrick Lucas, limited to practice with a calf this week. Their starting center, Eric McCoy, limited with a groin injury this week. And Cesar Ruiz, their starting right guard, was limited to practice this week. He was coming out of concussion protocol. So the 3 interior linemen on the Saints roster, or the starting lineup, I should say, all dealing with issues as they play what is a Giants defensive line that is ravaged by injuries as well. So which of the teams can somehow put forth a strong enough effort along the line of scrimmage when you're looking at 2 units that have been significantly battered? That's going to be a big deal during the course of this game. But it's just impossible to predict which team is going to be able to step up, given the fact that they are badly bruised and badly injured. Let's talk about the 3 key matchups for this game for the Giants. And Alvin Kamara against Micah McFadden has to be the top priority in this game. Now, let me tell you a couple of surprising things about Kamara. He's never had a 1,000-yard rushing season in his NFL career. And that blew me away to the point where I actually had to look it up. He's got 894 yards rushing this year, which is 7th in the NFL. He's had 3 100-yard games, including a season-high 155 against Carolina. He's also rushed for 6 touchdowns. But, again, never rushed for 1,000 in his career. That just blew my mind. Also, the other thing that was a little surprising is that his longest rush of the year was against the LA Chargers, and it was for only 24 yards. And for a guy who's got such elusiveness and escapability, that is rather surprising. Now, here's what won't surprise you about Kamara. He does lead the Saints with 59 receptions, only caught 1 touchdown pass, did have a 57-yarder for a score against the Dallas Cowboys. All right. So why is he an important guy to watch? Because Micah McFadden is going to be the starting inside linebacker, in all likelihood getting the green dot for the Giants, unless Bobby Okereke is able to quickly get himself off the injured list. And McFadden, had the breakout season of over 100 tackles last year. Also had 22 missed tackles on the season. Now, he's been better this season. He does lead the Giants with 11 missed tackles, but that is a significant cutback from last year. 80 tackles on the season. That puts him in 3rd on the Giants' defensive list. His 42 solos, 5 behind Bobby Okereke as far as that category is concerned. McFadden has athleticism, range, some quickness. He's going to be the guy who's really probably going to have a major headache of trying to deal with Kamara, who you can't think any other way. He's going to be the focal point of the Saints offense. And why wouldn't he be? He usually is anyway. And now with all the guys who have been out, You just got to know this guy's going to get the ball. All right. On the other side, I've got my other two key matchups. It's on defense. Demario Davis, incredible inside linebacker for the Saints, who was so underrated and does not get a lot of pop against Giants running back Tyrone Tracy. Now, let's talk about Davis for just a minute. Okay, 5 straight first or second team all NFL selections coming into this season. He's coming off 7 consecutive 100-plus tackle campaigns. In each of the past 2 seasons, he's had at least 6.5 sacks. Now, here's the one thing that he's not doing this year. He's not really getting to the quarterback, only has 1 sack on the year. And that's the lowest total he's had since he first became a starter back in 2013. Remember, he's a 2-time New York Jet, had 1 year with Cleveland in the middle there, and then after his second stint with the Jets, went to New Orleans, and he's been there now for over a handful of years. So Demario Davis is absolutely going to be my second key matchup against Tyrone Tracy in this game. He leads the Saints with 82 combined tackles on the season. Now, Tracy, well, he's had a really great rookie season for the Giants. He's going to be on the All-NFL rookie team this year. I'm pretty confident of that. But here's an interesting number for you. Last 2 weeks against Tampa and against Dallas, he only carried the ball 9 times apiece. 42 yards against Tampa, 32 yards against Dallas. He slowed down a little bit after putting up those 3 100-yard games in the previous month. But here's the interesting part. It's all about the Giants establishing rhythm and establishing some kind of a flow with Tracy in the running game. Because the 3 games this year where Tyrone Tracy has had at least 100 yards, well, in each of those games, he carried the ball at least 18 times. You have to feed him if he's going to break through and crack one, especially that he has shown acceleration and speed to go long. Well, you got to keep chopping at that rock to find that crack so that he can add a long run or 2 and then put himself back over the century mark. Key matchup number 3. Brian Brzee, the defensive tackle for the Saints, who's having a terrific year, against Giants right guard Greg Van Roten. Now, Brzee, remember, first-round pick out of Clemson last season, and he only had 4.5 sacks. All right, he was kind of quiet. Well, guess what? This year, he has 6.5 sacks, and there's still a month to go in the season. Now, he's playing 61% of the snaps, and he's had sacks in each of the last 2 games against Cleveland and the Los Angeles Rams. So it doesn't look like he's getting tired, and it seems as though he's still pretty fresh. Well, he's going to be a challenge for Van Roten. Now, according to my study, and again, this is unofficial, I've had him giving up 6.5 sacks on the season, including 1.5 last week against Dallas. He gave up a shared sack. Parsons looked like his responsibility on the 1, and Kendricks certainly looked like it was his responsibility on a solo sack there. So that would be my 3rd key matchup to watch in this one. You don't want to let Brzee penetrate against Van Roten and give the Giants trouble, whether it be in the running game or in the passing game. So it's Kamara against McFadden, Davis against Tracy, Brzee against Van Roten. The 3 key matchups to watch as the Giants take on the New Orleans Saints coming up on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Now, don't forget, we're back with the Big Blue Breakdown and our game balls and gassers for the New York Giants coming up on Monday morning, where we'll take you through the Giants' offense, defense, and special teams and highlight the guys specifically who did really well and those who certainly needed to polish up their game in this one against New Orleans. And then, as always, we'll be back next Wednesday with our Big Blue Breakdown live program, your chance to call in through video calls, audio calls, or, of course, you can always use the chat right here on the Big Blue Breakdown. That's live every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and Media Network. Until next time, I'm Paul Dottino.